Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Excited to see everybody here. I know you guys know how to win the listing better than I do. So I'm talking about getting more listings today. So I hope you guys saw the correction corner of, we're going to dig into some stuff that actually is pretty brand spanking new with even our industry, that the marketplace doesn't even know it. So most of this stuff that I'm going to talk about when it comes to the tools with Paragon hasn't even been trained on. I highly doubt that there are people out there that even know about it. Might be a few handfuls here and there, but I talked to Denise at the OABR and I got a lot of really good information. So it'll be interesting to see if you guys had heard anything or seen anything on it, and what your thoughts are. So. And hopefully if we have time, we can get to hear some of your guys' ways of getting more listings. So normally I am not the one controlling things, but so bear with me here. We might have a back and forth little piece of things, right? So I'll be running and monitoring the chats and muting everybody. So I gotta love technology. All right, we'll give people just a couple more minutes. I know that there's a lot of people that are at, we have Women's Council, the panel today, and then there's also a Buffini piece too. So we just wanna just let you guys know that, hey, there's a lot of different things going on today, but we felt that we still wanted to get out there. This is something that I've been wanting to do a training on or a video on for the last couple of weeks. So it actually was a good opportunity for me to be able to hop on and talk to you guys about it. How about this? How about while we're waiting for people to get on, you guys either unmute yourself or put in the chat what you guys have been doing to find listings. Like, what are you doing in this market right now to find listings? And is my audio going in and out? You guys, this is going to be a fun one today. All right. Perfect. All right. So is anybody drumming up new listings or trying to hit the streets or trying to find some listings off market that for your buyers or in those really great price ranges that we know will sell in a hot second? Good talk, you guys. Great thoughts. All right, help is on the way. Kelly's gonna monitor chat and waiting room for me, so I will be able to focus. All right, so we're gonna jump in a little bit and kind of just talk about what the premise is today, because you guys already know that our inventory is basically non-existent. So we were kind of talking, we ran the numbers and did, what are the actual viable homes that are on the market from 100,000 to 500,000. And that number was pretty staggering. It was less than 50. So we want to try to do our best to try to find those houses that maybe people will be interested in buying or in selling that just aren't out there on the market just yet, because we know the second that it hits the market, the chances of our buyers being able to get a home at a good price without having to have multiple offers is really very, very hard. So what if we can create an inventory ourselves or target sellers or rental, investors that are maybe ready to go, or, people that just are ready to go. So we want to be able to find those homes for people. So I'm going to show you guys today there's a couple of things. We're going to talk first about data digging, and then we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for hitting the streets and actually, finding and talking to, kind of using a layered approach between, what data can tell us and then what actually the street, what we can actually do in person to try to get these listings. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a new tool from Paragon. It's a prospecting tool, and it's through the CRS database. So this is going to be fun because we're going to pop through again for the people that are just popping on. These first two tools I'm going to talk about are pretty much, I think Denise said, launched in the last 3 to 6 months. I think one of them was maybe in the fall that hit kind of quietly that I had no idea about. And then another one just this last month. The other thing I will make note of too, that I'm going to pop into it, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's still too new for me to actually dig in. So basically, RPR redid their entire website. So it is easier to use. It's more, has more data, more information, and it's kind of just tailored more for what we're looking at. So I'm going to hop on in there right now. Get my share on. All right, here is our Paragon main page as we know it, of course. Now, what we're going to talk about first is I'm going to hop in really quick to the watched homes because this is not new. However, there's some new information that's come in that you can see on it. So when you're on Paragon, and let's say that you have a buyer that's looking for a property that's in maybe, like, for example, think about like Midtown in the Dundee area. Those homes really don't come up very often. So you want to start maybe watching some of those houses or starting to talk to some of those people that might have equity in their homes already and might have been living there for a little bit. So we want to start to kind of target and drum up a little bit there. So what we do, if you're looking for very specific homes, so let's say you just can't find anything, you have a buyer that's been looking and searching, they're in the Midtown area, and we want to find a specific house for them and just keep an eye on it, right? So if you go to your search and you go to mapping, now what you can do is click on any parcel, which this is not new. This has always been there. However, we'll just click on any of them here. Parker Street, very popular. Okay, on the left, you can see it has the information about the actual property, and it has the propensity to list based on their estimated loan to value and estimated equity. So this is all public record, and this is all new. So this information with that propensity to list is brand spanking new within the last couple of months. And then also taking information from what they have left on their mortgage and what the anticipated value is. And the algorithms are taking a lot of different things into consideration. And it also will tell you if values shift. So for example, if this was a property that I thought, you know what, maybe my people would like, I could just hit this watch property and it will start sending me information once things change. So if it does list, I'll know as soon as it hits the market. And also if something shifts with our market, again, we know that inventory is really low. So home prices really, if home values go up, it's not that big of a deal because we already know. However, you can do that. It'll shoot you an email when something with the algorithm changes too. So that's really quickly, just wanted to pop in there. I might mention this as kind of a layered approach as we're talking through some more of the data, but I thought that this was just really cool because again, we have so many buyers and not enough houses. So if you can really take the time, and that's going to be a big one. So none of these things are going to be quick, easy fixes for finding more inventory. This is going to be, all right, I have this specific buyer, or I know that I want to get into this specific type of home for listings. This is going to take a lot of clicking around. So you might see this one, so medium, right? And then hit more, over here, we've got kind of just different pieces of things too, right? So this one, that estimated loan to value says NA, that means that they've paid it off. There's no loan out there. All right, so just gonna show that really quick. Check the chat here. Yep, exactly. And again, we don't have to pay for it. Another thing that I'm gonna show you guys in a minute is similar to Pinpoint. And again, this is all going to be kind of layering on top of things. No, Kathy, there's not a way to watch the entire neighborhood, but you can kind of pick and choose. So for example, if let's say you're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, well, you don't want anything that's just a 2-bedroom, and you don't want anything that's, you know, a 5-bedroom or outside of what their price range is. So if you kind of know where they're looking at, you can click around and you can watch as many properties as you want. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out what that specific buyer is. So this is one that it does take a little bit of extra work, but I really do think could have some high payoffs, because the other thing too, like look at this one, estimated loan to value is 19%. So again, there's a lot of longer term residents that are living there that their mortgages are getting close to paid off. So this might be an opportunity to kind of target some people on those streets. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to shift here. So I'll pause for just a second for questions while I kind of ramble off. But like I said, this one's kind of a little bit more self-explanatory. The next one, you're going to be able to play with data a lot. So this one's going to be, this could go a lot of different directions. And so I'm going to show you the different fields of what you can run searches by. And then I suggest you just play around with it and see kind of what comes up. Get your brain thinking about the people and the houses that are popping up, so that you can kind of get an idea of, all right, what demographic is this? Who am I talking to? What are those hot buttons for those sellers or potential sellers that I can appeal to? And how can I do a very targeted and specific approach so that it doesn't feel like every other mailer or every other realtor that's calling them? Because I'm sure that we have plenty of people that are getting bombarded with real estate agents trying to buy their house, and it can get annoying. So we do have to cut through some of that noise. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you, which this is probably, I bet Denise thought that I was crazy when I paused for a second and went, this is really a thing. All right, so main page, we go to the tax portion. We're going to go to the CRS data tax search. Doesn't sound like anything that we would really actually specifically be interested in using for prospecting, except they just launched this new prospecting tool. Now, the other thing is, really quick, I'm going to back up, is on this property search, you can search by foreclosures. I'm not going to pop in there. It's just there. We don't really need to search too much by foreclosures, because our market is really, we're not in necessarily a market where foreclosures would be something that is easily targeted. So in this prospecting tool here, the first thing you're going to start with is the subdivision, or you can search by owner name too, or address. But this really, if we're going to be prospecting and trying to add things to our farming list, or trying to find more listings for buyers that we currently have, we really want to start searching by subdivisions. So for example, if I do Trendwood, make sure you scan down, right? So all sorts, you want to make sure you add everyone. So the good thing is it's easy to just pop in and add. This is all very quick. You don't have to restart your search, because that drives me nuts when I have to take a second and go back and retype or repopulate. All right, so we have all of Trendwood. Now, before you get too excited, we need to scan down and we need to filter out and make sure that we get the property type. Make sure that's residential or forest. Make sure it's residential, so you're not pulling up commercial listings. So or commercial, non-residential. Anyway, so this right here, we have 461 properties. Now, there still could be some HOA or corporate type in there, so you might have to filter that through. But if you wanted to just have a list of all of the homes in Trendwood, here you go. It's all of them, 461. This is the most basic search without honing it in. Now, I want to talk to you guys about some of the cool things that you can filter by, because I really think that this is going to be very important. One, you can do school zones, but that, again, with our inventory so low, it's not nearly as important. Parents, 10 years ago, all they wanted to do was find schools, or houses in the school district for their kids. But now it's like, we just want to find a house. So you can search too by the MLS listing. So you can take out anything that is pending or currently active. So we could take out any actives and sale pendings and update. Oh, I'm sorry, I did the reverse. Oops. Back it up. All right. Sold, expired, canceled, for lease, leased. I mean, any of these we really, or you could just remove all active. All right, now we're back. Okay, now the other thing here too is you see these little icons over on the side? Well, this is going to tell you exactly what it is, right? So this one says sold, depending on the time frame, obviously, but it will show you if there are any for lease or leased. Now, the other thing I want to show you guys, which I really think is going to be pretty important, is sorry, it's still fairly new. There is an ownership duration. So this is cool too, because you don't want to target people that have just bought, and you don't want to target people that necessarily have been there forever, right? We don't want to target grandma and grandpa's house that they've been living in there for 30 years. We want to get to the sweet spot, which is typically 5 to 10 years, but you could scale it out a little bit, right? So anything less than 5 years, they probably don't have enough equity to get out of their home, although in this market and in Trendwood near Boys Town, they might. But we still want that sweet spot. So I'm going to do from 5 to 12 years. First, I'm going to remove this because it's throwing off everything. All right, there we go. Okay, so people that have been there for 5 to 12 years, now we have a list of 119 people, right? And this, you can create labels and you can export, so you have the information right there. And then there's also a few different types of things that you can search for that's kind of fun. You have cash buyers, so if they don't have a mortgage or if they had bought cash, then you can find those. And then mortgage age too. So if you are starting to get to, like, say, the 15-year mark, right? You might think, I would say the 30 again, we don't want grandma and grandpas, right? But if we get to, say, let's say 10 to 15. Well, there you have 6. So you can kind of play with some of these parameters just to kind of see what comes up too, right? So now we have the 119 that are 5 to, did I say 5 to 12? 5 to 12 years in their home. If we click on this, now we have more information. Oop. And click view, view report. And now this is going to take us to all of their tax information, right? So we can get more information about the home. Also, look at this, past pictures from past sales. So the good thing is like, let's say, for example, you know that your client's looking for a very specific thing, you at least aren't going into it blindly, and you can start to kind of take those down and out and get to a really fine-tuned list. We have all of the public information here. So any information that you're looking for, and they bought it for $195 in 2013, that might be, I mean, they're going to have some equity in that, especially, you know, 8 years, going on 8 years out. So anyways, it gives all sorts of information similar to RPR, and, you know, HomeSnap has some of that stuff too. But this one, if you're interested, like, say, for example, what's her name? Popping around. Sorry, you guys. Terry Lure, you could take that, put that into the assessor site and see if Terry has any other homes, or you could see if in HomeSnap, if you could get some of the contact information from that, right? So let's just take this one, for example. Let's put it into HomeSnap, because you guys know that in HomeSnap, sometimes you'll have property information if it's publicly available. Okay, and then also from here too, you could create a quick CMA, or here's a contact the owner, but that's a pro version. But every once in a while, there will be an email address, and here we go, phone number and email address. So you can layer this on now. So not all of them in HomeSnap have phone numbers, so just keep that in mind. And I've seen some that most have email addresses, but some of them don't. So, but this is a good way to kind of start going in and fine tuning this. Again, it's not quick, and it's not necessarily as straightforward. You kind of have to pop around and be just digging for data. Now, the other thing that you can do, I'm going to pop back into our CRS prospecting, close that guy out. The other thing you can do is the owner type. Now, what you can do is the absentee in state and absentee out of state. Now, what that's going to do is give you a list of people. I'm going to get my duration out of here, sorry. of non-owner occupied. Now, this one, though, you will have to sift through because there could be some HOAs or, the different kind of, I've seen like Cox has certain land or things that pop up, right? So these right here on the right have not updated. Absentee. As you can tell, this is new for me too, so I apologize, you guys. But we have our absentees. So now we have 47 houses that are not owner occupied. So if you want to take those 47 houses and then start targeting those, start digging into it a little bit more, right? So you can see again at the bottom, these 3 have sold. So this was sold in 2020, so probably don't want to target them. So you can exclude some of those. So if I click these here, scan up, I'm going to remove that. So now I don't have to remove things and clean up my CSV file. I can do it right here. Now, one other thing to think about too is, all right, if these guys are non-owner occupied, what you can do is then take these names and cross-reference them with the assessor site and see if they own other properties. So if they are, say, a traditional investor and they have more than 10 properties, they probably already have a relationship with a real estate agent. If you find that they have maybe 3 or 4 or 5, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, then maybe that's a good opportunity to reach out to them and talk to them about unloading their inventory in a hot market. So there's ways that you can tailor the data to the conversation, but each one of these is going to be a little bit different. So as you're digging into it, you want to be making notes about, okay, is this a house that my buyer would want? Is this an investor that I could maybe talk to about their package of rentals? Or, is this somebody that's just I think could get a lot of equity in their home? So a lot of different ways that you can approach this. Now, this is that prospecting tool, right? So I think if I do a quick export, there you go. You can also sort now too. So you could do a status sort, and then we could remove even some of those extras. It exports it straight out. It will even you can create labels directly from here, which is cool because a lot of times you have to export it as just an Excel file, that's CSV. But here you can actually put in and have it print straight from here. Boom, Word document, create labels, send it straight to the printer. Now, talking about what you do with these now that we have this list, and we talked a little bit about maybe some of the motivating factors of say, certain pieces of these, right? But the next piece that I would like to talk about too is your approach in it. So we're finding that people are being approached and mailed and called and getting postcards and getting newsletters constantly. So how are you going to put yourself outside of that box of everybody else is doing this into, all right, that's the agent I want. Now, there's a few different ways that you could do this. Of course, you could start just mailing to these people, right? So you can layer it on. And you guys have heard me say this probably a million times, but it takes 7 to 12 times for anyone to actually remember or recognize that you're a real estate agent, especially when you're farming. But if you take a multi-layered approach to it, and this 44 properties, right, are easy to find. It's not as, and this is the investors. So I'm kind of talking as if this is a fine-tuned list, right? Forget that this is the investor part. Let's just say this is your residential. You have a list of 44 people that you think could either sell their home or you have a buyer for. Well, you could start doing your mailers and newsletters right away. One layer. They're going to get that no matter what. Then you can start targeting them on a weekly basis. You could start sending things that look similar to your newsletter or your standard postcards and send that out weekly. And then I want you to start doing handwritten notes. Handwritten notes are king for 44 properties or for however many you tailor it down to. That's not really a lot. And then the next thing is if you have a specific buyer for that, I don't want you to just send a postcard that says, I have a buyer for your home, because guess what? Every single realtor in Omaha has either been sending those or has a buyer for their home, right? It goes straight past. So what I want you to do is take that to give more specific information. Find out a little bit maybe more about that house, but also have information about your buyers. right? Say I've got, a couple with a dog that their parents live nearby. They drive by this house every single day. They've always loved it. And we just were wondering if you might ever be interested in selling, whatever the case may be, right? So make it personalized and put that, attach it to a story for your, take that buyer and make it a person and have that potential seller connect with that. Because there's no connection in just saying, oh, I have a buyer for your home. Well, that's great and all, but do you, or do you just want to get in the door and tell me how you can sell this house for a higher price, right? So again, just keep it personalized and fine tune your approach with that. Any questions on the prospecting? Again, this is really, really new in general. It's fairly new to me. As you can see, I've kind of bounced around. It's not my normal kind of flip through, but it's a lot of really great data and information that you can play around with. I mean, there's so many different things over here on the left-hand side that you could tailor for and get even more lists. That's even if you want to do farming, if you don't care about, fine tuning it too much, but you just want the entire subdivision. You could clear all of these statuses and have all those 461 addresses and create labels straight from there. So keeping that in mind, use this information, hone in, find, dig into more of the public record tax information, and then start thinking about what your buyer actually needs. So the next thing that I kind of want to talk about before we talk about actually hitting the streets is rethinking your social media. And you guys might have heard this before. This one's fairly new, and I've been hearing it probably within the last month or so as tips and tidbits of advice. But, we always advertise that we have a new listing, or it's sold in one day, or it's all listing and house focused. What if we shift and start putting out there on social media that we have a buyer for this type of house? Get specific. I have a buyer looking up to $275,000 in Trendwood for a 3-bedroom multi-level. Do you know anyone, or do you have anyone for this buyer? I'd love to get this person in a home before school starts. So start putting those things out there. You can also do those Facebook ads, right? So you don't have to necessarily put a lot of personal details about the person, but you do want to give enough that people are intrigued, right? We have tons and tons of friends on Facebook and Instagram and wherever socials you're following, that you start putting the word out that you have those specific ones. Do those individually. And then you can start doing targeted ads. So you could start, let's say you do have 5 buyers, right, that are in certain price ranges. Make it a Facebook ad that says, I have a buyer looking for a ranch in West Omaha. I mean, obviously a ranch in, let's say, Elkhorn, we'll narrow it down, up to 500,000. I have 2 buyers that are looking in Midtown up to 400,000 for, 2-bedroom, 2-car garage, or 2-bedroom plus 2-car garage. Put those in there. So that one, it does a couple of things for you. One, it starts to drum up some interest and at least gets another way and layer out there. Because if people say are in Trendwood and they're getting your newsletters, they're getting your mailers, they're getting your note cards, and then they see an ad on Facebook that you have buyers, well, guess what? They're going to maybe think that that's a little bit more legit than just having a postcard come to them about low inventory. We have buyers. You can have equity in your home. The other thing that this does is it also shows that you're doing business and that you're working for your buyers. So that's appealing to buyers, because most agents aren't doing that. What we're doing is we're sending it to other real estate agents and saying, in search of, well, we are all in search of. We all know that. And it's kind of a joke. We kind of play with that. We are all in search of. Obviously, we want top of mind, but why not take that past the realtors and go straight to kind of your sources? In search of, or I'm finding, I need this, without obviously trying to sound desperate, but you want to make it appealing. So it's showing other buyers that you're working for them in this really tight market where they're already hearing that if you're under 400,000, it's going to be tight, right? So buyers are seeing that, and that's helpful for them. The other thing is sellers are seeing that too. So it works on the seller's end. So sellers are thinking, oh, well, they're working for their client. What are they going to do for me? And also, maybe if they have this many clients and I don't really want to deal with all these multiple offers I've been hearing about, all of these open houses that have, hundreds of people through. I don't want all these people through my house. I'd much rather just sell it and be done with it. Well, they're seeing that too. So it's another way for you to be able to utilize in a different way your buyers in your advertising versus your listings in your advertising, which is what we're really used to. So I'll get off kind of that little piece of it, but I thought that was kind of an interesting way to go about it, because there are, we do still see all of those all these posts still come out that sold in one day. Well, that also kind of leads to this kind of buyer fear, right? So, oh my gosh, sold in one day. That's great for the listing, but 15 offers and, sold in a day and all these things, that could be intimidating to a seller, because that's a lot to have to sift through, especially if I'm not really into the process anyways. That seems scary, right? So shifting kind of that mentality of, we can make this easy, we can get you the most money. It doesn't have to be stressful. You don't have to have a lot of people in and out of your house. You don't have to be put out. I'm going to help you through that process. So just kind of shifting that thought. The next thing is like actually hitting the streets, right? So one of those things is driving around. So let's say Trendwood is your place. Why don't you drive around Trendwood and find houses that are maybe in disrepair, that, right now lawns aren't overgrown, but if there were snow on the ground that, hadn't been shoveled, houses that look like maybe they have deferred maintenance, and start targeting those people. That might be in a rental property that's vacant. It might be someone that can't take care of their home anymore. It might be someone that can't afford to take care of their home anymore. So you can approach those people in a very genuine and sincere way, instead of in a solicitation way, right? So you could start approaching them and say, I do have a buyer. I would really love to help you sell this home. And what can I do to make that process easier for you? And I can still get you your market value price for it. And a lot of times there are people out there that just don't want to deal with the process of it, right? We all have different personalities. And I think that sometimes as real estate agents, we kind of forget that not everybody is outgoing and bubbly and ready to conquer the world, that we're in sales. So that's by nature our personality. There are so many people out there that aren't comfortable, that take a long time to make a decision, that if things are hard or difficult or they don't understand, they kind of just sit and wait. So this is an opportunity for you to drive around and just see, okay, what is happening? Also just see, and this is, this advice has been given 1,000 times, right? Oh, if there's a remodel truck in the driveway, or if there's an estate sale, or if there's a garage sale, go approach those people too. And that is good advice. That is always good advice in general, but a lot of times people are just doing a garage sale to do a garage sale and are remodeling their kitchen, so they're not getting ready to sell. And if they were getting ready to sell, do you think they already wouldn't have an agent, or are they actually doing those repairs because an agent recommended it? So finding some of those homes that are in disrepair, getting to know kind of some of those demographics. And then the other thing too, and this is going to sound a little stalkery, but it's more of a custom approach, so that you can provide help and specific value to certain people, is you now have names, right? So you have names right here. You can drive the neighborhood, you can start highlighting and making your short list, and then you can go onto Facebook and social media and just get a feel for them. Yes, it sounds totally stalkery, like we're in the bushes, but if we know a little bit more about them, that could either eliminate us from contacting them, or it could encourage us and go, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to reach out to them. And obviously in not weird way, you don't want to say you've been stalking them on Facebook, but you can fine tune kind of your approach based on the more that you know about the person, and the more you know, and the value that you can provide with your buyer too. So the other thing that you can do, like actually physically, is using listings to your advantage. And that's if you have listings, or if even other people's listings, right? So let's say you have a listing in Trendwood. Well, start talking to all the people around Trendwood about how much money you got them, how much above value you got them, and start doing CMAs for people. So you could then target and go back to our watched homes, right? So you could see, or you can click on the tax data. There's a lot of ways to get information now, which is a little bit scary. Whereas, before you could only kind of go to one spot and have only certain information, but you could see how much they bought their home for and how much they have left on their mortgage. And you could do a quick CMA and a cost sheet and say, hey, I can make you this much money. And when there's that right in front of someone, that's a lot. One, it's powerful. Numbers speak, right? But two, it shows that you're doing your work, you're doing due diligence, and you're actually focusing on their home and what value you can provide. And you combine that with having buyers on hand, then it really does become kind of a powerful shift of, okay, this isn't just someone contacting me. This is someone that's doing their legwork. And maybe they're not ready to sell, but maybe they're impressed that you stood out from everybody else, right? So even if it's not your listing, like I had said, you can still go and say, this house sold for this. You have the information, you know what the house sold for, and you know what the values are, right? So, or what they had paid for it and when. So using that to your advantage. The other thing too is, now this is going to be a little bit, and this will be kind of not for the faint of heart, but writing offers. So I'll tell you a little story about how Tom secured our very first office, that one on Dundee with, our cute white house. He just kept writing offers and putting it in their mailbox and then calling them and making sure that they got their offer, right? So every time he'd up the offer a little bit, and it took about 8 months, actually 8 to 12 months before they finally were like, okay, first time you get an offer in your mailbox, you're like, whatever. Second time, you're like, okay, this guy again. Third time, you're like, this is getting a little bit annoying. We're going to ignore it. And the fourth time, you're like, all right, I just need to talk to this guy so he can either leave me alone or figure out what's what. It turns out that they had actually were ready to sell and they wanted to buy a condo downtown. So it took a long time, but if you're putting offers in hand, it's a lot easier to say, this is a legit buyer and we're ready to go. Now, if you don't want to have your buyer's information on there, which I suggest being a little bit limited in that, but still being able to say, all right, this is what we want to buy your house for. And it's right there. And all you have to do is call me and we'll sign and put it together. And it's going to save them money too, right? So if they're pre-FSBO or pre-market, they're going to save them potentially 3.6%. If you want to up it and do maybe a 3% for it, then you're saving them money too. So putting that value on that transaction too. So it's not just, oh, I want to buy your house. It's, well, I'm not going to charge you a full listing percentage because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to get my buyers into a house, and you happen to have a house that we can both have a mutually beneficial relationship with. So there's definitely different ways to do that. So I thought that was an interesting way that Tom got the house, is persistence and consistency. So again, that's not really for the faint of heart. You have to have buyers that fully trust you. But in taking some of these into consideration, this is also a good way for conversations to start when you're at that buyer's meeting, that first time buyer's meeting. We always kind of sit down with them. And the thing is if you have if you can only afford $200,000 house, the conversations that we're having now is, okay, well, you need to start looking at $175,000 house. Well, no, I said 200. Well, yeah, you're going to have to overpay for it. So having that conversation, which is a very defeating conversation, then you can take that and go, but here's what I'm going to do for you so that we can maybe get you a little bit more home, and we can get we can find some things that aren't even on the market yet. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to look and dig into each of the public record tax data for the neighborhoods that you're interested in. And I'm going to post on Facebook and Instagram that I have a ready pre-approved buyer that needs to move right now. And I'm going to handwrite letters, and I'm going to send those to all the people that I think houses might fit for you. So the thing is, it's a benefit for your buyers too, because I know a lot of you have talked about how defeating and disappointing it is, not only for your client, but for you too. It gets a little disheartening when you have really excited buyers and you can't get them into anything. And it also is draining, right? We're showing tons of houses. We have to drop everything and go show a house right now, because otherwise we're going to miss out. We have to write multiple offers. We have to write higher. We have to really work to negotiate for our clients, when we could just start finding those diamonds in the rough that are going to be there. And if you start fine tuning this and getting some processes in place, it won't be as difficult to replicate. Because I kind of talked about a lot of different things, right? So this was not just a go to the CRS data and hit the prospecting. It's a lot of niching down and finding very specifics of what you're looking for, because then you can fine tune and tailor an approach, and then you'll have a higher chance for those people to know, like, and trust you, so that when you do have those conversations that are decision-making conversations, that you don't have to prove yourself at the table. You're literally there just having a conversation with people. Because anymore, and I've mentioned this about 17 times in this, so I'm sorry, but homeowners are getting inundated. They're getting inundated with people wanting to sell their homes. And you know what happens when people get sold to or annoyed? They back off and they say, you know what, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. This market seems crazy. There's multiple offers. There's buyers not getting houses. There's, 50 people going through in one day. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to wait until the market shifts. Well, then that adds to our inventory problem. So by kind of popping through and doing some of these little tweaks, you can start to kind of dig and drum up some inventory that's maybe not there. The other thing that I'm going to talk about 3 different things. So I'm kind of shifting, so I apologize, but I'm going to talk about a few other things that are out there, and it's all about kind of layering and what you want to do with it. But you could always go to pinpoint, right? So we talk about pinpoint, but let's go back to that trendwood, right? So let's say, what if we start targeting people that their income is either higher or lower for what the average home there is, right? So if on average homes there are from 200 to 275, then maybe let's target some of the people that are living there that are making less than that, than what potentially they could afford, or making a lot more than that. So for example, let's say they have been living in their home for 5 to 10 years, and that was their first time home, right? And they barely could afford it then. But since then, they've gotten promotions, they've changed jobs, they've gotten a higher income. Well, now you can start to kind of tweak and get into that frame of homes, right? So it's all about adding some of those different things. I didn't pop into the housing value because I think that with pinpoint for this specific example, I really think that income is going to be the best way to try to layer that approach with what we're talking about in the drumming up listings. So I would do pinpoint can be used for a lot of different things. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but for this specific example, I would add on to that a level of searching for homes in Trendwood for different income categories. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the RPR. This is brand spanking new. So I only know a little bit about it, so I apologize, you guys. But literally, I think it came out like March 4th. So this is all redone. It's easier to use. It still has that reports function, so it kind of delays your reports a little bit. So there's still kind of that funky piece, and the reports look similar. So I don't think that they changed much when it comes to the reports, but I want you guys to play around with it, because if you haven't used RPR in the last, I don't know, few years, it had even changed since then. So just kind of keeping in mind, there's a lot of different ways. Now they do also have a prospecting tool. It's similar to that CRS data, but I played with this a little bit the last couple of days, but I do prefer that CRS data when it comes to the prospecting versus the RPR at this juncture anyways, because I feel like the RPR one is a little bit clunkier to try to navigate through. So the other thing I'm going to check into is this opportunity zones. So there's not much training out there, but I'm wondering if this has to do with certain parts of town that has an opportunity for higher return on equity based on how many sales have been happening, average age, average loan amount, average home sale. But I'm going to find a little bit more about that. But I wanted to just pop in here and just kind of show you guys that it is new. It does look a lot better and easier to use in general. And then the other one we had kind of popped into is that home snap. So HomeSnap, we get that obviously with the OABR. So we do have one pro level. There's a pro plus if you want leads, but for the most part, you can get a lot of information just going directly to HomeSnap. So you start layering those things in and whittling down your list, and you can have maybe a solid list of, say, 20 people, and then just feed them your love, right? Get them on some sort of high targeted plan. You guys have heard my revitalizing your pipeline. Put an 8-week plan together for those 20 people. Call them, drop off a pop by, give them a CMA, get to know them a little bit more, give all of those layers and mailings and follow them on social media. So they're either going to tell you to pound sand or they're going to call you. Could take one time, it could take 10 times, but it's just different ways to try to think outside of the box when it comes to figuring out how to get all of your buyers into these homes that are off market, or sellers that are scared to sell right now, or it's just a nuisance, right? Okay, so any questions right now? I've given a lot of data and kind of bounced a little bit around, but that's kind of the sheer nature of it, right? If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, because you know what most realtors are doing right now? They're getting regular just subdivision lists, and they're just shotgunning it. Well, if you've done also any of the marketing or any training classes with me, I really, really tout that shotgunning it doesn't work anymore. We all want to feel really special and that people are paying attention to us and that we're not part of a bigger pool of people, because we don't want to be sold to. We have our unique values and needs that need to be met. And so by figuring out what those are and getting to know those and concentrating on those, then you can really add, it can really, I don't know, there's kind of magic in it, right? Because even if you're focusing on 20 homes, the more you're thinking about someone and the more homes you're thinking about it, the more energy you're putting out there, then the more that kind of comes back into play. And also the more energy and effort that you're putting into the specific marketing materials that you're giving them makes them feel appreciated because it is customized to them. So that was my whole spiel. You guys have been very quiet in the chats. So I'm going to kind of go back at the bullet points of what we've talked about. So first we talked about 2 new tools and also RPR revamping, right? So we have the CRS data prospecting tool, which is basically the crux of today's training. And then we have the watched homes that has now the propensity to buy, to sell. And then, the NAR RPR has redone all of their stuff, right? So the other thing too, we talked about is rethinking your social media. So start thinking about how you can create ads that are targeted to sellers based on your buyers. So the buyers that you have, start creating ads for that. And then we also talked about actually hitting the streets. So driving around the neighborhood, finding those properties that look maybe are a little bit deferred. And then also using your listings to your advantage, creating those CMAs for people that are in that neighborhood about how much that house made and what you could make off of your house. And then also we talked about writing offers. Put an offer in the mailbox and just see what happens, right? The worst they can say is no, or to, again, pound sand, right? Don't ever call me again, and make sure you do a big red X on that guy, because you don't want to be on the bad side of one of them, right? All right. So anyways, any questions or anything that you've got? Amber said, I was late, or sorry, Joe said, I was late to the party. Does the CRS data work for Iowa and does it cost? I've only been playing with the Nebraska piece of it because it ties into the MLS, right? So I need to dig into Swire a little bit more. I don't know if they have that as part of their piece, but this is definitely for Nebraska based. And it is included with your OABR dues. It's part of the Paragon package. So it might be specific to Paragon. So I need to dig in a little bit more to Swire, but these things are so new that I'm glad that I know about them now, and we can kind of pop in and see what else we can do. And then Amber said, is this something you'd suggest doing as a daily habit or spend some time weekly, monthly, and really dig in? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say this is kind of like when you search, when it used to be kind of our hot sheet or our hot list, right? Before we had, quick access to all the information, we might pop into Paragon every single day and use our little hot sheet and see what's new to the market. So I would use this too, start just poking around and thinking about it, thinking about your buyers, doing research on different areas of town and different subdivisions. And I can do a really quick, I was going to talk a little bit about farming, but I'll give you 3 things to think about when you're choosing a farming area. One is the average home price. You want to make sure that it's in a solid home price that you want to be in and that you can sell houses in, which we know is pretty easy now. And then you want to make sure that the turnover rate is 7% or higher. You do not want to get into, like, say, a neighborhood where everybody's staying, right? So if the turnover rate is less than 7%, then you might be wasting your time sending mailers. Then the other thing is you want to make sure that the competition in the neighborhood, that is, if there's one agent that sells 25 to 30% of the listings, they already have a stronghold on it. So you might be wasting your time trying to send to those specific places. So I just kind of gave a synopsis on that. I can go into more detail in a different class if you guys want to get more information on choosing a market, because there's also another component of it too that I kind of alluded to, is that if people are getting inundated, then they're not going to see your pieces either. So I think that there's a 4th category there that I'd really like to dig into and figure out what kind of data I can find to get you into really the best neighborhoods that you can start farming that nobody else is farming, right? So it could be a popular neighborhood that's farming, but nobody has a stronghold because there's too many people farming it. And we have talked, we're going to get a list together of neighborhoods that people are farming. So that way you can see if agents within Better Homes are sending regular postcards out. So we're working on that. That's coming soon. So just keep an eye out for that. But then the other thing I'm trying to work on is, and I don't know if I'll be able to get it, but is talking with the post office to see how many bulk mailers are going out to specific neighborhoods. And that's not necessarily just real estate specific, but for example, in Trendwood, if I'm getting advertisements from the pizza place up the road and lenders, real estate agents, pizza machine, everything else that we get, right? Then maybe they're getting inundated with mail. So I'm going to try to see if I can figure that out. Amber asked, what's my favorite CRM resource, RPR, HomeSnap, or other? So I'm going to dig into RPR. When it first came out, I really, really wanted it to work for me, but I just couldn't get the data to match up with Paragon. And Paragon is our ground zero. Well, our MLSs, Swire's MLS. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of it. I'm so sorry, iOS. But your MLS is your ground zero, and that should be, the best source of information. However, there are so many other things that are coming out. My next preference right now, before I can dig into that, is HomeSnap, because it links directly with Paragon, because HomeSnap will give us associated docs. It will give us all the details of information that's on the MLS currently. And it also allows us to update some of our listings. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in HomeSnap, you can update certain pieces of your listing straight from the app. And then also I like that it combines public record, like mortgage, taxes, all that fun stuff. And Joe asked, how do you find the turnover rate? So if you're farming an area, you want to take your turnover rate is going to be the total number of houses in a subdivision. So for Trendwood, for example, was 461 houses. So in 461 houses, you want to find your turnover rate for the last year. So what you would do is you would search in Paragon and search for Trendwood, see how many houses had sold in the last year, and divide that by your 461. And that will give you that percentage of if people are moving or not. I don't pay the $99 for HomeSnap because that's the HomeSnap Pro Plus. I don't know as much about it, but it is more of a lead gen piece of it. The OABR has the Pro version, which allows us to do more with our listings and to have access to more information, including that client information, the phone number and email. The 99, I don't know specifically what's included in that, but there is, I did see one spot where there is a contact client. So if something's not maybe public record, there's an ability to maybe have some sort of database with that. And then also, yeah, getting leads generated to it. But if you guys want more info on what that next level of the individual agent pro version is for HomeSnap, then I'm happy to dig in for you. Any thoughts on any of it? I know it was a lot of information, so I mean, blanketed it out there, and I apologize. There were points where I was kind of choppy on it, but it is definitely a newer piece. And again, I guarantee, I said 99% of the agents. I would be surprised if there were many agents that knew that this was out there, because I know that the OABR hasn't been really pushing it out much in trainings. They might have once or twice, but I'm pretty sure that none of the other brokerages are doing it, because I was having conversations with the OABR. Do we still have to worry much about the do not call list with the owner phone being available? So that right there in HomeSnap, there are some that don't have phone numbers. So if they don't have phone numbers, then they're not available to call, and they take those into consideration. However, if they tell you to stop calling, please stop calling. We don't want to get a complaint from anybody that they have too many calls and mailings from certain people. The other thing that, yep.
I was just gonna say really quick with that, I was kind of thinking when you were first talking about like doing like targeted mailings to these like people that we're finding, kind of a cool way to stand out. I don't know if anyone's doing it, or I guess I Googled it really quick, but doing like a mailing with just a QR code, and then people could like click on it for a video where you like introduce yourself. And like when you know the people's names you're going after, like, you know, specific homes, it'd be cool to be like, hi Joe, or, you know, whatever. It may be kind of creepy and like futuristic, or maybe it's not, but that'd be kind of cool. And that's kind of like a phone call without making a phone call. You know, they get to hear you and talk to you. So maybe that would work too if they're on the do not call list, to make it a little more personal. And
I love that, Sarah. That's a fantastic idea, because QR codes, you can generate those for free. There's all sorts of QR code generators, and then you can link them to specific websites. And so you could do a private YouTube that only they can have access to see one of those, and do very custom. And again, if you only have 20 people and you're already targeting this group of people, it's going to be really easy to do a quick video. So I love it, Sarah. Some people might be totally turned off by it. You might have, you know, a grumpy whoever that just doesn't like it, but they might not even see the QR anyway. So it's not like you're in their phone already, right? So like you could send a text with that, but that would be a little bit much, right? Because me personally, if I got a text from a number that I didn't know with a video, I definitely would not be clicking on it. So I love that idea. And again, being personalized is going to be king, because nobody else is doing this stuff. Do you know why? Because it takes a lot of work. None of this stuff that we were talking about today is easy. It's going to take some time and effort and work, but that's how we also cultivate relationships with our spheres, is by putting work into them. We do pop-bys, we write personal notes, we call them on their birthdays, we send them, you know, different congratulations on whatever, right? Well, why not do this for specific targeted groups? And by having data that's more available, it's more cost effective, for one. And two, it allows you to be focused, right? Because 5 years ago, we didn't have an easy way to access this information, unless if you were going to the assessor site, yeah, you could grab a full list, but you couldn't fine tune it like this. So we have the capabilities to really stand out right now. And I think that this is using this data and being very specific is going to pay off. Any other questions, or what have you guys been doing? So really quick, I know we've got a few minutes. So what have you guys been doing when you have those buyers that have been writing a lot of offers and not getting homes? What's happening? Are they still looking? Are they deciding to wait? How are you helping them get through that process where it does feel like I can't look at another house that I don't like and that I'm not going to get anyways? Yep, looking at FSBOs for sure. And FSBOs is that's another one that we have to get super creative. And Nancy, I'm going to bring up the conversation tidbits of the conversation we had the other day. But 2 points on that. One is that FSBOs are getting inundated. They're already going to hate you. You know why? Because that you're probably the 100th call that they've gotten from a real estate agent that says, hey, Sally, I have a buyer for your home. You're like, yeah, so do the other 99 realtors that just called me. Get in line, trash. So they are getting inundated. Absolutely. And I guarantee anybody that says that they're a realtor is going to immediately have the wall up because they just don't want to deal with it. But the second thing is that in thinking on that and getting creative with how you can approach for sale by owners, Nancy and I had a conversation the other day about something that one of her potential clients was talking to her about, which was a younger agent that didn't have too much experience, but knocked on her door, wanted to get it on the MLS. I can do an office exclusive for you. I can do a 1-day open house, all for free for you. We're going, what in the world? For one, we're trying to figure out how the paperwork trail is going to work on that. And for two, it's another thing is, how is he going to get compensated for that? And a lot of it might be just a flat fee. And then is he going to get more buyer leads? Is he going to use that in his advertising to generate more? So is he trying to get into the door of a FSBO at a discounted rate so that he can then leverage some of the other things that come from it? It's like Tom always would say, like, we get you in there for the 99-cent hamburger, but we sell you on the whatever, right? We're taking a loss on this to get you in the door, but we're going to oversell you on this other special. And agents that are searching for their listing is telling them 3.5% commission. So that's another thing, is that if you come in and go, all right, Mr. FSBO, I can do this for 6% for you, they're going to laugh in your face. Like, okay, that's great. Why don't you tell that to the 50 people that just saw it at this open house that are ready to buy, right? So people are definitely discounting rates. They're definitely getting in there for flat fees. They're getting creative on what they can provide while still going outside of, or getting creative with how their listing agreements are, because we have that new clear cooperation, right? So we still have to have a listing agreement, but we have 2 days to get it in. So if you have a 2-day listing agreement that you start on a Friday that expires on a Sunday, well, you hope that you can get it in there and get as much traffic generated before it hits the MLS. Well, what's the point of it? Is to sell it really quickly. It's a really interesting, there's a lot of interesting things out there. So Kathy said, I recently dealt with a cocky FSBO that's all about what a seller's market is and laughed at paying a buyer's agent. A few days later, agreed to, but refused to have offer contingent on appraisal. And it's in the under 200 range of buyers that don't have the money to make up the difference. Yeah, and that's hard too. So how did that end up? Did he end up, how did that land, I guess? Because that's a good point. In these hot price ranges, there's just not much wiggle room on both sides, right? So buyers don't have enough money to come up with the difference. And yeah, buyer walked away. And so for sale by owners can shoot themselves in the foot too. Also noticing buyers agents compensations at 2% and 1%. So we have actually, Tom and I have been talking just in general about that, about commission erosion and what we can do to try to maintain that. Because again, if we're getting a for sale by owner, they're not going to pay us 6%, right? They want something cheaper. So then we have to then in turn either eat some of it or make less than what the buyer's agent is. And a lot of times agents are putting that then in lower because they know that they can sell the house quickly. Well, what we're concerned about with that is that erosion, when the market shifts, we're not going to be able to come back up from that, right? So if our market in general goes to a 2% like Lincoln is, when the market shifts and then suddenly it's a buyer's market and we have listings that are sitting and sitting and sitting, hopefully not sitting and sitting and sitting. Let's do one sitting, right? You have to do, it doesn't sell in a day, right? It takes a week and you have to actually market it. For us to be able to turn that around is going to be very hard. So we're trying to talk about what that value is and how we can, as just best practices, make sure that we don't erode that on the buy side, because if that starts going down on the buy side, then the list side's just going to follow, because it's already showing that it's following. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The Lincoln buyers commission is down to about 2%. We've seen more 2% buy side commissions than 2.4% because they have a lot of discount brokerages in town. And talking about kind of that level of arrogance too, when you have a home that's for sale by owner, well, that's also that type of personality that's ready to tackle it themselves. And we all, in any market, anybody that wants to try it themselves first, that they have that personality that's willing to talk to people, that's willing to show people their home, that's willing to talk about pricing and negotiations. So if you start talking to people before they even think about for sale by owner, then you're going to get all of those people that are like, oh, thank you. I just didn't even want to think about it. I didn't want to call these other 7 agents because it just felt too much. I'm glad that you're coming in with a solution for me. Not all of those are going to be that, but they're out there, you guys. It's just a matter of doing the work and digging in and being persistent and authentic at the same time, because that's the hardest thing to do, is because we see way too many people that are inauthentic out there and just blasting, and maybe not intentional, but it is easy to just create a postcard and send it that says, I have a buyer for your home, or I can sell your house in one day. Anything else, you guys? Otherwise, I'll wrap up, and then I might do another video just on the side so I can kind of button it up a little bit better. Because again, there are a lot of steps in digging in deeper and deeper in the layers. Awesome. And if you guys have any thoughts or tips or ideas or things that you're going to start doing to start getting more inventory, then let me know. I'm happy to talk about it. I love talking about what the market is doing, because it's such an interesting market right now. So yeah, I love talking about it. I guess that's why I'm in real estate, huh? All right, you guys. Well, if you need anything, just let me know. I'm here for you. I appreciate y'all, and thanks for joining.